When Harlem speaks, the streets listen. And this week, Jim Jones made sure everybody heard him loud and unfiltered. Out of nowhere, Capo sent shockwaves through the game after calling out Tony Yayo by name, firing a line that had the internet lit within hours. Tell 50 to send you an ounce. Maybe then you'll move something. That one sentence? Pure Harlem disrespect. It started when Tony Yayo went on an interview talking about loyalty, money, and who really holds weight in New York rap. He didn't say Jim's name directly, but you could feel the shade. And if there's one thing Jim Jones doesn't tolerate, it's subliminals. Within minutes, clips started flying, fans started picking sides, and social media turned into a battlefield. Harlem versus Southside. Dipset versus G-Unit energy all over again. Some people say Jim just reminded everyone why he's still one of the most outspoken voices in hip-hop. Others think he just reignited an old New York rivalry that's been quiet for too long. But one thing's for sure, when Jim said the streets still talk, he meant it. Because this time, the streets aren't whispering. They're roaring. It always starts with one interview. One offhand comment, one slick line that rubs somebody the wrong way. And in the world of New York hip-hop, where pride, loyalty, and legacy mean everything, words travel fast. Tony Yayo had just sat down for an interview, talking about G-Unit's history, the industry, politics, and how loyalty works in this game. He was calm, confident, talking that veteran talked about who's real, who stayed solid, and who switched up when the lights got bright. But somewhere in between the talk about loyalty and hustle, he made a few comments that sounded like subliminal shots. He didn't say Jim's name, but when you've been around long enough, you know when someone's throwing shade. Yayo mentioned how some rappers pretend to be bosses but move like middlemen. He talked about artists still chasing relevance and how some people never learned how to lead without a cosign. Those lines might have sounded harmless to casual listeners, but the moment the clip hit social media, fans started tagging Jim Jones immediately. "Yo, he's talking about you, Capo. Jim," he said, "you ain't built like that anymore." Yayo, throwing shade at Harlem. Jim didn't say anything at first. He just let the internet do what it does best, amplify the noise. But the silence didn't last long. Because if there's one thing Jim Jones knows, it's how to control the conversation. He's been through every kind of industry war, from Dipset drama to industry beef. From fights for respect to battles for the crown of New York. So when he finally responded, he made sure it hit hard. He dropped a clip of himself outside in Harlem, that classic Dipset energy in his voice, and said just one thing that broke the internet. "Tell 50 send you an ounce. Maybe then you'll move something." That line carried more than disrespect. It carried history. Because for years, Harlem and Southside Queens have had that subtle tension. A mix of pride and competition that's always existed in New York's hip-hop bloodline. G-Unit had their corner. Dipset had theirs. Both movements ran the early 2000s. Both had the streets behind them. And both built their legacies from scratch. But the thing is, even back then, there was always a little static. Little side comments. Little rival energy. Not a full-blown war. But enough to make you know that one wrong word could spark something real. When Jim dropped that line, it wasn't just a random insult. It was him saying, don't forget who really had the streets. Harlem pride talking. Capo energy talking. Within hours, Twitter was full of reactions. Jim wild for that. Yayo gotta respond or it's over. Harlem up right now. Even old heads started chiming in. Some said Jim was just defending his name. Others said he went too far bringing 50 into it. Because when you mention 50 Cent, you're opening another layer of history. And that man never backs down from confrontation. For context, Jim and 50 have always had an interesting relationship. Not exactly enemies, but not exactly tight either. There's mutual respect. Also that quiet tension that comes from two street veterans who've both had to fight for their spots. And with Tony Yayo being one of 50's day ones, any shot aimed at him automatically feels like it's aimed at the whole G-Unit camp. That's why this story blew up so fast. It wasn't just about Yayo, it was about what that line represented. Harlem versus Queens. Old era versus new attention. Loyalty versus ego. The blogs picked it up, YouTube channels went crazy. And suddenly, everyone was talking about whether Jim was trying to reignite that old New York rivalry. Some fans even pulled up old footage of Jim talking about G-Unit years ago, showing how this tension had been building quietly for years. One clip from back in the day resurfaced, where Jim said, "Lot of dudes talk like they gangsta, but I really lived this." Fans connected the dots. Maybe he'd been holding this energy for a while. Meanwhile, Tony Yayo didn't stay quiet either. He dropped a few subtle posts online, pictures with stacks of money, cryptic captions like "talk is cheap," "motion is loud," and one clip where he laughed at rappers who still trying to prove something in their 40s. That was enough to make the internet explode again. You could feel it. New York hip-hop was alive again. That raw, competitive, no-filter energy that used to define the city had come back. No label politics, no PR filters, just real talk from two veterans who've seen it all. Behind the scenes, people close to both camps tried to calm it down. There were rumors that mutual friends reached out to stop things from escalating. But when the streets start talking, things take a life of their own. And this time, fans weren't letting it die quietly. Clips of Jim's line got turned into memes, TikToks, even freestyles. One fan even edited the quote over a classic Dipset beat, and it went viral. Jim reposted it with laughing emojis, showing he was enjoying every second of the chaos. But deeper than all that, there's something bigger going on here. Because this isn't just about Jim and Yayo, it's about legacy. About who still holds weight in the streets after all these years. About who can still talk and make the whole city react. Jim Jones built his brand on authenticity, on being outside, being visible, being respected by the same blocks he came from. Tony Yayo, on the other hand, was always that loyal soldier G-Unit's backbone, the guy who never switched sides. So when those two worlds collide, it's not just entertainment, it's identity. And while fans love the drama, people who really know New York culture understand that this kind of tension is part of the DNA. Every borough has pride. Every OG has history. Every crew has their legacy to protect. So as of now, the ball's in Yo-Yo's court. The streets are watching, the blogs are waiting, and Harlem's feeling that energy again. Whether it ends in another diss, a friendly handshake, or something in between. One thing's guaranteed. Jim Jones reminded the world that even after decades in the game, his voice still moves the culture, and when Capo talks, everybody listens because Harlem never whispers. After Jim Jones dropped that one-liner, the energy across the culture shifted instantly. It wasn't just a social media moment, it was a ripple that spread through every barbershop. Every podcast, every YouTube live talking about hip-hop's real ones. Harlem was loud again, and Capo had the mic. Tony Yayo didn't respond immediately. For the first few days, he played it cool, posting studio clips, pictures with 50, and laughing at the memes that had already gone viral. But if you know Yayo, you know he's not the type to let disrespect slide forever. He might not jump on Instagram Live and start yelling. But his silence always means something's brewing. Behind closed doors, sources close to both camps said the phone lines were hot. Harlem and Southside Queens, two legendary corners of the culture, were buzzing again. Some people said 50 Cent even caught wind of it and told Yayo to chill, at least for now. Others claim 50 laughed about it, saying Jim's trying to stay relevant off old beefs. Either way, that one bar had done exactly what Jim wanted. It got everyone talking. Meanwhile, Jim stayed outside. Every night, new clips appeared, Jim cruising through Harlem, cameras rolling, the city lights bouncing off his jewels as he talked his talk. "Ain't no rap beef," he said in one clip. "This just rap talk. But don't play with Harlem." That line, "don't play with Harlem," became a whole slogan online. Memes, tweets, t-shirts. The phrase started trending under clips from his interviews, his performances, even old Dipset moments. It wasn't just about Yayo anymore. It was about Harlem pride, about how New York's culture is built on energy, confidence, and the power to move the streets. and the power to move the streets. A week later, Yayo finally addressed it indirectly, of course. He went live on Instagram, laughing with his people in the studio. "Man, I don't even know why y'all hyped about that," he said. "I've been rich too long to worry about what rappers talk about. If I really wanted to move something, y'all would see it." That subtle flex had people talking again. Was that a response to Jim? Probably. The timing was too perfect. The tone was too slick. The confidence too familiar. But Jim didn't bite this time. Instead, he reposted an old Dipset clip from the We Fly High era. Captioned, "Some of us built empires off one song. Some of y'all still trying to get permission to drop one." That was classic Jim Petty. Smart and surgical. It wasn't just a diss. It was a reminder. He's not the kind of rapper that hides behind nostalgia. He's active outside. Still building. Fans started calling it the Battle of Legacy. Because, at its core, that's what this whole situation felt like. Two veterans, both respected, both carved from the real street DNA of New York, defending their place in the culture. Then came the curveball. Menno stepped in, out of nowhere. Menno posted a clip on Instagram saying, "Y'all need to chill. Both my brothers, Harlem, Queens, all family. Don't let the internet turn this into something it ain't." The comments section exploded again. Some people praised Menno for trying to calm it down. Others accused him of playing mediator for views. But deeper down, everyone knew this wasn't a full-blown beef. It was pride. It was New York energy resurfacing after years of silence. And that's what made it so interesting, because lately, most rap drama feels forced publicity stunts, PR setups, fake feuds for clicks. But when Jim Jones speaks, it doesn't feel staged. His delivery, his words, his tone, it's authentic. It's Harlem bravado mixed with that street poetry only a real one can deliver. That's why his quote, "Tell 52 send you an ounce," was so different. It wasn't about money or drugs. It was about motion, about movement, about staying relevant and productive. Jim was basically saying, "You talk too much, but where's your work?" And that hit a nerve. Even hip-hop podcasters like Joe Boudin, Math Hoffa, and DJ Academics jumped on it. Everyone had their take. Joe said Jim's in promo mode, but that bar was on fire. Math Hoffa said, "You gotta remember, Yo-Yo's no soft target. That man stood 10 toes next to 54 decades." Then came the fans' theories. Some thought it was all planned, that maybe Jim and Yayo were cooking something behind the scenes, like a joint record or a reality show moment. Others believed this was part of Jim's upcoming rollout, maybe to promote new music or Dipset merch. But people who know Jim personally said he's just being Jim. The thing is, Jim's been consistent for years about one thing: respect. He doesn't like being disrespected, and he doesn't do so. If you say something that sounds like a shot, he'll address it directly or indirectly. That's how Harlem moves. No guessing games. Meanwhile, Yayo has always been about loyalty and code. He's from that school where you don't let outsiders disrespect your team. And that's why mentioning 50's name in the middle of all this made it 10 times louder. Behind the scenes, the music industry started paying attention. Some labels, DJs, and influencers started reaching out to both camps, hoping to capitalize on the energy. Everyone knows when New York drama hits, the whole culture tunes in. Even 50 himself finally reacted, not directly. But in classic 50 Cent fashion, he posted a meme of himself laughing with a caption that said, "Everybody wants attention these days." No names, no tags, but the timing said it all. Jim caught it and responded with a post of his own. "Tension is earned when the streets still respect you." The exchange sent fans into another frenzy. By this point, the story wasn't about a single insult anymore. It was about legacy, presence, and the battle for relevance in a world that changes every week. Both Jim and Yayo came up in an era where rap was dangerous, where your reputation was your currency. And seeing them still moving like that, still defending their name, reminded fans why the early 2000s felt so real. Clubs started spinning old. Dipset and G-Unit tracks again. DJs on Hot 97 and Power 105 started talking about real New York energy returning. For a minute, it felt like 2005 all over again, raw, unfiltered, and full of that competitive fire that built the culture in the first place. Even younger rappers started weighing in. One Brooklyn rapper tweeted, "Y'all arguing? But y'all both paved the way for us," another Harlem artist said. Capo reminding folks Harlem don't fold. Through all of this, Jim stayed calm, confident, and collected. He didn't overreact, didn't drop a diss track, didn't drag it out. He let his quote live. He let Harlem talk for him. Because that's how real legends move. They don't chase noise. They become the noise. And while Tony Yayo might laugh it off, deep down he knows that one line, that one Harlem moment will be remembered long after the memes fade. Because in hip-hop, it's never just about what's said, it's about who says it and how it lands. And Jim Jones just proved again his words still echo through the streets. The story didn't end with that one quote, it only got louder. Because once the streets start talking, the echoes don't die out overnight. Jim Jones had sparked something that went deeper than a back and forth. It was about presence, pride, and power in hip-hop's oldest battleground, New York City. After 50 posted his laughing meme and Jim fired back with his "Streets respect you" line, fans knew this wasn't some random internet moment, this was legacy talk. Old heads, young fans, and even neutral rappers all started jumping into the conversation. Everybody had an opinion. PODCASTERS debated whether Jim was clout chasing or standing on business. Some said he was just promoting his new work, that this was all timed around his recent drop in appearances. But others, especially from Harlem, took it personal. They said Jim was just defending Harlem pride the way Dipset always did. Loud, confident, and with no filter at the same time. Tony Yayo started using his platform to flip the narrative. He began doing interviews again, talking about brotherhood, street loyalty, and how he's not into rap politics anymore. But even in those calm tones, he kept slipping in slick comments. "I've been around real money," he said on one show. "Some dude's still outside trying to get recognition. I'm chilling in mansions." That was pure Queens talk. Cool, dismissive, and filled with that subtle arrogance that Yo-Yo's always carried. But fans knew he was still responding. The blogs caught it immediately. "Yayo throws shade back at Jim Jones," they wrote. Clips flooded Instagram and TikTok. Jim didn't bite. Instead, he went live from Harlem again, talking about loyalty, staying relevant, and the difference between being outside and being online. He said, "Everybody rich online now. But where the motion at? Where the hustle? Where the real movement?" The comments went crazy. Harlem lit up again. Jim's energy was infectious. That authentic New York talk that people miss in today's rap scene. But beyond all the noise, there was something symbolic happening. For the first time in a while, New York rap was back in the headlines for rap reasons. Not gossip, not trends, not marketing, but for words. Respect. And legacy. People started comparing it to the classic era when rappers used interviews, bars, and real-life energy to settle their differences. It reminded the culture that hip-hop started in these streets. And men like Jim and Yayo are part of that foundation. Even Fat Joe weighed in subtly. During an interview, he said, "New York energy, different. We all came up competitive, but it's all love deep down." That statement calmed some of the online tension, but didn't kill the story. The audience loved it too much. Clips of Jim and Yo-Yo's old interactions started resurfacing. There were moments of mutual respect, like when they performed at the same events, or when Jim spoke about 50s business moves years ago. Fans started analyzing whether this tension was rooted in something old, maybe some street misunderstanding or a clash of ego from the 2000s. And while that speculation ran wild, both artists leaned into their identities. Jim kept doing interviews, talking about ownership, street honor, and the legacy of Dipset. He dropped a new freestyle where he subtly said, "Some dudes talk numbers. I'm still counting love from the blocks I built." Yayo responded with a clip of himself rapping in the studio. Bars filled with subliminals about old rappers trying to trend. But the timing made it clear. The internet ate it up. It wasn't full-blown war, it was a chess game between veterans. Both men playing smart, giving just enough to keep the conversation alive without crossing the point of no return. But deep down, fans knew these weren't two random rappers beefing. This was Harlem and Queens revisiting a decades-old rivalry. G-Unit and Dipset represented two sides of the same story. Both rose from nothing, both changed the sound of the streets, and both taught the next generation how to turn hustle into empire. Even younger rappers started saluting them. One Bronx artist said, "If you from New York, you understand what Jim and Yayo represent. It's not beef, it's lineage." Another Harlem influencer posted, "This is motivation, iron sharpening iron." As the weeks went on, the hype didn't die. Instead, it evolved. Jim started teasing a new track, rumored to have references to loyalty and legacy. Fans immediately connected it to the situation. Yayo dropped a short freestyle snippet too, and blogs framed it as a response, whether they meant to or not. They'd given the culture exactly what it wanted: energy. Meanwhile, 50 Cent, ever the puppet master, started joking online. He reposted a meme showing himself as a referee between Dipset and G-Unit. Laughing in the caption, he wrote, "I love this. It's giving 2005. That one post got millions of views. Even Jim commented under it with a smirk emoji. That was the first public sign that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't pure tension anymore. It had shifted into something else, a performance, a reminder, a reawakening of that classic New York spirit. And for fans, that was enough. Because seeing legends like Jim Jones and Tony Yayo go toe-to-toe, even through words and interviews, reminded them why they fell in love with hip-hop in the first place. It wasn't about charts. It wasn't about labels. It was about voice, pride, and impact. Back in Harlem, Jim kept moving, how he always does, visible, respected, and connected. Every time someone brought up the situation, he smiled, saying, "We just keeping it hip-hop. Ain't no hate. Just competition." That's the part people forget in hip-hop. Competition is love in disguise. Real artists don't argue because they hate each other. They argue because they care about who's next, who's best, who still moves the city. And that's exactly what this moment became. A pulse check for the culture. The streets loved it. The blogs lived off it. The fans debated it. And through it all, Jim Jones once again proved why his name still holds weight. He didn't need a chart position or a viral dance. Just one quote was enough to make the entire hip-hop world turn its head. Tony Yayo, on the other hand, showed why he's still one of the most respected voices from Queens. He stayed composed, never emotional, never desperate. Just quiet confidence, the kind that comes from standing next to 50, sent through the hardest times and never folding. Both men walked away with their reputations intact. No one lost. In fact, the whole city won. Because for the first time in a while, people weren't talking about drill controversies or social media beefs. They were talking about real New York energy again. And if there's one thing everyone agreed on by the end of it, it's this: hip-hop might change faces, but the heart of it will always belong to the streets. Jim Jones said it best in one of his later interviews, "Ain't no love lost. We all kings in our own corners. But when you speak my name, make sure it comes with respect. Because Harlem don't whisper, we talk loud." And just like that, the moment that started as one line became another page in New York's ever-growing rap history. A reminder that respect isn't given. It's earned word by word, block by block. And bar by bar. The streets are still talking, and there it is. Harlem spoke, Queens replied, and the streets made sure everybody heard it. Now the question is, who really won this round? Was it Jim Jones for standing on Harlem pride, or Tony Yayo for keeping it calm and playing the long game? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. I want to know who you think came out on top. If you've been rocking with real hip-hop talk, not that watered-down industry drama, Make sure you hit that LIKE button, smash subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss what's next. Because the way New York's moving right now, this story is far from over. This is your boy, bringing you that raw energy, unfiltered facts, and the truth the blogs don't say. Stay tapped in, because the streets, they never stop talking, never stop talking.